Hey guys, it's Jess and Phil. We are back for another episode and I'm super excited about today's case. It is going to be a long one, so when it's time, get ready to strap in. How you going, Phil?
I'm good.
Is that good?
How long?
It's a long one, yeah.
Two-parter?
No, not a two-parter.
Okay.
Just like you'll be cutting it fine for the school run today.
Damn.
Yeah, I know.
Well.
It's taken me a while to get through it, but
Okay.
anyway, I want to talk about Taylor Swift.
Kill me now.
I didn't talk about it last episode, and I realized that after, and I was very disappointed because when I went to upload last week's episode, I happened to click on one from July, and I was talking about when I bought my Taylor Swift tickets, and I was like,
Oh
wow,
my God.
this was really full circle because I just got back from Taylor Swift, and it was one of the best nights of my life.
But did anybody ask? Like, who really wants to know?
I feel like the world wants to know about Taylor Swift. Just because you don't need to rain on my parade.
Okay.
I had a great time. You're just jealous you weren't there.
Yes. I'm very jealous I wasn't there.
Well, it was a good time, and I really enjoyed it.
Okay.
She found herself in the media this week. Her dad did anyway, accused of attacking paparazzi. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Nah, I don't know.
Wow.
Depends on what they were doing, you know? If they wanted their privacy.
Did you not hear the story?
No, old mate, didn't her dad just run up and start swinging on someone?
Yeah, because they were like trying to shoot her in the face
Like shoot, like...
with a camera. It's the same.
Well, look, that's their job.
That's their job.
Yeah, to get the pictures of the... But it's like, I don't know.
Phil doesn't know much, do you?
No, I just got no take on it.
Okay. Well, I thought you'd have a different take on it, being like a dad yourself. Like, picture it was Goldie, you know?
Oh, yeah, if someone ran up on me with me
So-
and Goldie, I'll punch him in the face
Okay,
as well.
so justify it.
I'd steal his camera
Oh,
and then punch him in the face.
so you'd go to jail.
Yeah,
You'd go to jail and there'd be a lawsuit. Anyway, I was like Team Swift, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Always. What else is happening this week? I don't know. I always have so much to say and then I go blank. What have you got?
Well, you didn't say much on Taylor Swift except about her dad.
I talked about the concert. It was the best night of my life.
Oh, okay, that
Nothing
was
more to
it.
share.
Sweet.
I have not stopped listening to music and watching the concerts live. I'm actually glad that she's left the country, not because I don't want her here, but because I haven't been able to think about anything else other than Taylor Swift for like the last 3 weeks.
It's been a lot.
It's been a lot.
Felt really neglected.
Oh, come on now. Come on now. Anyway, what else you got?
What have I got? What do I have?
Don't play with that. It makes a sound.
It's freaking March tomorrow. How crazy is that?
No, what's the date?
The
Oh
29th.
shit, it's a leap year.
Yeah,
It's
well, by the
29th
time this
today.
comes out, it's March, so that's crazy.
Damn, we didn't even celebrate.
Celebrate what?
I don't know. Do you celebrate the leap years?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
It's kind of a big deal. It happens every 4 years.
Um,
Happy birthday to everyone that was born today.
yeah, how crazy. No, but I don't have much. Just the usual. Been flat out with work, working on this absolutely monster edit.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, get out of here.
Kidding.
No, that's about it. But I'm excited for this episode because you're excited for it.
I mean, it's just a big one.
I just hope nobody gets hurt. Really hope nobody gets hurt in today's episode.
You're in the wrong podcast business for that. Yeah. Well, there was some things I wanted to talk about this week in our Australian true crime media. There's a lot going on at the moment, but I just didn't have time to get updated information. So I'm gonna leave it this week because I don't want to say the wrong thing or not share the right thing. And then maybe next week there'll be more details about that gay couple that was murdered by the police officer I want to talk about, and the missing mum from Melbourne.
Oh yeah, that one's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, there's no case that I enjoy. There's no cases I like, but the ones with missing persons really fuck with me. I hate not knowing. I can't imagine how their family feels. It would be, it'd
be the worst.
It'd be the worst, absolute worst. Which coincidentally kind of coincides with today's case.
Uh-oh.
It is a missing persons case And as I said, it is a big one. So I think we should just jump into it. Lucie Blackman was a 21-year-old British woman living in the town of Sevenoaks, which is just outside of London. She lived with her mum and her 2 younger siblings, Rupert and Sophie. Her mum, Jane, and her dad, Tim, had divorced when they were younger and had since gone on to, well, he had since gone on to have another family.
The dad?
Yes,
Okay.
but they were still close. Growing up, Lucie was sweet and caring. She was always full of laughter and smiling. People gravitated towards Lucie. She just had one of those personalities that made you feel warm. After school, Lucie developed a bug for travelling, and so she decided to become an air hostess, and she got herself a job with British Airways.
What a job. I'm sorry, I just got to cut in and say that would be a pretty sweet job, you know, for the right person. Remember when you wanted to do it for a while?
I did want to do it, and I wrecked my interview.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Keep going.
Anyway. So she got a job with British Airways and she loved her job. She got to travel and see new places and meet new people. But anyone who probably has been or still is an air hostess would probably agree that the novelty of this job does wear off quite quickly.
I retract my statement.
Lucie I couldn't imagine. I feel like it sounds like it would be really good, but when you actually imagine what the job entails and all the different people you have to deal with on a daily basis, like the entitled people and the rude people, I would lose my job from punching someone probably.
Now, can you tell me what year are we in, or do we get to that?
I'll get to that in a minute. Yeah, I'm just telling you about Lucie.
All right.
So after school, Lucie developed a bug for traveling. She decided to become an air hostess. She got sick of it, and she shares this kind of feeling that she has with her friend Louise. She basically tells her, like, I'm sick of seeing the inside of hotel rooms instead of the actual places I visit, and the money really isn't that great. And so Louise tells Lucie about her sister who traveled to Tokyo recently and became a club hostess and was making a ton of money while traveling and having loads of fun, and suggested that maybe this was something that they could also do together. Now, hostessing was predominantly a Japanese thing, and there would be these places called hostess clubs, and the role of a hostess was basically to provide company to the men at these clubs, and most of the men were like middle-aged businessmen and mostly very wealthy. They had lots of money, and they had to, because hostess clubs were expensive.
Chinese billionaires.
Yes.
Very rich boy.
Very rich.
Sorry, can I just... I'm getting ahead of myself.
Before you do, I just want to say, like, it's not like a strip club. I feel like this is what you're about to ask me.
They're not
it's
like
not
escorts.
No, they're not escorts. There was no sex involved in the job at the clubs.
Okay.
So they were really just there to entertain them, keep them company, keep the drinks flowing, light their cigarettes, laugh at their jokes. It's almost like a date kind of thing.
Cool.
With no... they didn't owe them anything.
Hell, sign me up for that with a Chinese billionaire. I'll be all over that.
Maybe. So the girls decide to do it. They decide, sure, this is going to be a fun adventure that they both can go on. So in May in the year of 2000, the pair hopped on a plane and they headed to Tokyo, Japan. What?
How old was she right at this time?
21.
Oh, so in 21, that's when she's... Okay.
She's 21 in the year 2000.
All right.
Sorry. So they get to Japan, they get themselves an apartment, and they both get a job as a hostess in the Casablanca bar in Roppongi, Tokyo. So the Roppongi area is kind of just known for nightclubs. It's basically like Brisbane's Fortitude Valley. Like
okay.
That, or like Surfers Paradise. Like it's like a strip.
But nicer.
I assume... I don't know. I'm just saying that's like...
Okay.
You go, we're going to the clubs. We're going to Roppongi, basically. So in the beginning, Lucie was really enjoying herself. She was making loads of money, and she would email her sister Sophie telling her how much fun she was having and that she couldn't believe how much money she was making just from talking to people. Lucie's family were a little concerned about her new job. Pretty girls being paid to keep businessmen company didn't really sound very innocent, but Lucie put them at ease. She emailed her sister and told her the job was like being an air hostess without the altitude. She admitted to her mum that a customer once offered her a fantastic amount of money to sleep with him, but she laughed it off, obviously, and reminded the man that her job was to pour drinks and discuss mundane topics and perhaps sing karaoke. Lucie told her sister Sophie that she couldn't believe she was being paid so much money, literally just to pretend like she was listening to someone. Lucie even started dating in Japan. She met a man by the name of Scott Fraser, who was a US Marine, and the two of them had like a nice little romance. It's safe to say that Lucie was having the time of her life. Except there was one aspect of her job that Lucie didn't 100% love, and this would be going on what was called a dohan. This was a date outside of the hostessing job. Hostesses would usually go before their shift. They would go for a dinner or for a walk, like a one-on-one date. And this would usually last 1 to 2 hours. And then after the dohan, the hostess would take the client back to the club and host them for the rest of the evening.
Okay.
So the girls or the hostesses would be required to do this 3 to 4 times a month. They all had a quota that they had to make.
Okay.
They didn't have to have sex on these dates, but
on the dohas.
on the dohans, they weren't required to ever have sex. But if they wanted to make a little bit of extra money, it was an option for them. Obviously, this wasn't something that Lucie would do, but I just wanted to put that out there. That
So are they working for an agency?
they're working for a club.
Or working directly for the club?
Yeah, so it's basically like going to a club and it's like a bar lady.
Yeah.
But their job isn't just to serve drinks. It's to entertain them and make them
Mm-hmm.
feel like they're having a good time and flirt with them and all of that. But they don't have to do anything sexual.
Okay.
But on the dohans, that's completely up to them.
Yeah.
If they want
If
a
they
little
want to
bit
make
extra
that,
money.
they want to
Yes,
make
but
that
it's
money.
not a
Okay.
requirement.
Yeah.
So Lucie, like, she didn't really like this part of her job, and she always kind of struggled to meet her quota. So on the 1st of July, Lucie finally, like, she books one in. She gets someone to book her for a dohan. And she tells her friend Louise that she'll be back in a few hours, and then along with Louise and some friends, they were going to go out for the evening once she gets back.
Mm-hmm.
At around 7 p.m, Lucie calls Louise and she tells her that the dohan went really well and that she was going to be home in about 30 minutes. So
Right.
Louise waits, minutes go by, hours go by, and Lucie never returns. So she's gone to work,
Yep.
gone to a dohan. She said, I'll be back in 30 minutes, but she doesn't show up.
So something's happened within that 30 minutes.
Yes, basically. Is there anything else you need to catch up on?
Nah, I think there's lots to unpack. Who was the guy she was on the dohan with? What was her boyfriend doing at the time? Did he get a little bit jealous if she's still dating?
I don't think that was a serious thing. I think it's
Okay.
just like a
All right.
little fling, you know?
Yep. Tell me.
So the next day, Louise goes to the police and she tells them that Lucie has not returned and she was worried about her friend, but they dismissed her. As soon as they found out that Lucie was a foreigner, that she was a hostess,
Yeah.
and that she was here on a travel visa and not a working visa, which is a little bit naughty,
Mm-hmm.
they decided that it was probably nothing. She's a grown woman. She probably is just out having fun or has met someone and gone home with them. Like, they just kind of shifted it off. By the 3rd of July, there was still no sign of Lucie, and Louise was going out of her mind because no one was listening to her. And I can't imagine that feeling of like your friend
Just,
being like,
yeah.
you know, I'll be home at 30, and then you don't see them for 2 days. Like, I would lose my fucking
In a whole
mind.
nother country, yeah.
And like
Instant,
no one's
yeah.
believing you. So then randomly, Louise receives a phone call from an unknown man, and the man was Japanese, but he spoke English well, and he tells Louise that that Lucie has joined a religious cult. She's safe and not to come looking for her. And then he hangs up.
The fuck?
Yeah. So Louise is like, what the fuck? Like, that's
Do
crazy.
we have audio of that?
No, this is year 2000.
But they're still cell phones?
Why would she have audio?
No, but like, could they, I don't know if like the Popo could track it.
They didn't care that Lucie was, they
Oh,
don't believe
that's
she's
right.
missing. So Louise is like, what the fuck? And so because the police aren't listening to her or taking her seriously, she goes to the British Embassy. There's one in Tokyo. And she explains to them what's going on, that her friend went missing 2 days ago. Nobody's believing her. Like, she needs help. She doesn't know what to do. She doesn't know where her friend is. They tell Louise, like, don't worry, we're going to help you. And one of the first things they do is actually call Lucie's parents because they still don't know that she's missing. They have no idea what's going on.
Wow.
By the time Lucie's dad touches down in Tokyo, Lucie has been missing for 11 days. Still no sign of her.
How soon after the parents got the call from the embassy did their parents or the dad get over there ASAP, like next flight over?
I just said by the time he touched down, she'd been missing for 11
Yeah,
days.
but that's not an answer to my question. From the time the embassy called and said, hey, you don't know where your daughter is.
Yeah.
How many days after did the dad get there? Was it straight away?
Well, 9 days. She'd been missing for 2 days when Louise went to the embassy and they called her dad. And by the time he touched down,
okay.
Lucy'd been missing.
I didn't
for
realize
11
that
days.
she went to the embassy after 2 days.
Do you not listen?
No, to some parts.
Okay.
It took the dad forever to get over there.
Well, you don't know their circumstances. They might have had to like scrounge to get money together to get there. I think at first he was like, I'm sure she's fine. You know what I mean? Like he wasn't. I don't know exactly why it took 11 days, but it did. Mm-hmm. Well, it took 9 days by the time he touched down.
Yeah.
So when he first arrived, he went and he spoke with the Japanese police, and he was shocked because he realized that the Japanese police really hadn't made any attempt at any investigation. No one was really looking for Lucy. No media was reporting that she was missing. No one even really knew about her. So Tim decided, fine, if you're not going to do anything about this, then I'm going to. And his strategy was basically to just make as much noise as possible until the pressure of not knowing where Lucy was too much for the Japanese police to ignore. After all, he is British, and everyone knows that the British press are the most insane media outlets in the world, so I feel like he knows how to stir the pot, he knows how headlines work. Mm-hmm. So Tim starts this huge campaign to find Lucy. He goes to every single media outlet he could, he holds press conferences, he sticks upwards of 30,000 flyers with Lucy's picture on it all over the city, and when police would tell him, you can't stick posters up, it's littering, he would literally, just put his hands out to them and be like, okay, arrest me. And obviously there's a camera following Tim, so they don't arrest him. He would try and speak to politicians. He would inject himself into the investigation. He was doing everything that a parent would, but also everything that the police probably should have been doing from the beginning.
Yep.
Tim, still desperate for answers, met with the police at the station to find out any more information that they had. He inquired about security cameras, but to his frustration, the police explained that such cameras are limited in Japan due to privacy concerns and cultural differences, which is pretty much a stark contrast to the surveillance abundance in London, where there is literally a camera on every street corner. But it also was the early 2000s, so I don't think surveillance cameras were as big as what they are now. You can't go anywhere without being on camera. Okay. Good chat.
No, there wasn't time for a chat. We invested in the story.
Okay. Rumours began to circulate, with people speculating that Lucy might be alive and had been trafficked to Hong Kong or taken by a cult based off of the phone call that Louise had received that day after Lucy went missing. But Lucy's dad dismissed the cult theory. He was like, absolutely not. Lucy would never do something like that. Mm-hmm. As Lucy's dad intensified the media coverage, pressure mounted on the Japanese police, and they were basically forced to up the ante. Over 100 officers, which is an unprecedented number compared to the usual 5 or 6 that are normally assigned to the case. They were assigned to focus on the investigation and shifted it to Roppongi, the area, the district where Lucy worked, known for its nightlife with older men and drinking establishments. 19 days in, so she's been missing for 19 days.
Yep.
With the media attention surging due to the British Prime Minister Tony Blair visiting, he was there for the Japan G8 summit. Lucy's dad seized the opportunity. He met with the Prime Minister, leveraging the visit to discuss Lucy's case. And after that, Tony Blair then met with the Japanese Prime Minister, and while with him, he asked him to do something about Lucy and to help with the investigation, basically. And the Japanese Prime Minister guaranteed the suspect's apprehension. So he basically had no choice but to go to the police and be like, pick it up. What are you doing?
Yeah.
So this put a lot of pressure on the police, and they knew that they had to find Lucy. So the Japanese police cultivated a smaller group of investigators. These investigators were meticulous with their work, and they were the kind of investigators that went over everything with a fine-tooth comb so that nothing could get past them. So they go back to the beginning. They gather any evidence, which is basically nothing at this point, but anything and everything that may relate back to Lucy's disappearance. They shift through old police reports in the Roppongi area and basically just try to find anything that sounds familiar to what's going on now, or just rings an alarm bell. Mm-hmm. While checking the reports, they come across a file that was from the Roppongi area, where the nightclubs are. The report was about another foreign hostess who had been working in one of the clubs. She was invited by a male regular to go for a drive, and at some point she passes out for hours. When she wakes up, she has a sore head. She feels like she's been drugged, like she just feels disorientated. And the report was written as like skeptical and said that it came from an unreliable club manager and that it shouldn't be taken seriously. So she was basically ignored. And the investigators, they disagreed. Like, they thought this was like legit. So they follow up and they try to find any more reports or to see anything else that felt similar, because it kind of felt like this could be what's happening to Lucie, maybe. But because the police didn't take any of these complaints seriously, there was never an investigation and no further information to follow. So it basically was a dead end. The more that they looked into these reports, the more stories they started to uncover of similar experiences. So they decided to try and talk to every single employee in the club area, but nobody wants to talk. They really steer clear of the police, like almost like they don't trust them. A lot of the girls there don't have like proper working visas, and so they're just really hesitant to get involved. But I also think it's because like we're only like a quarter way into the story and the police seem to not take anything seriously. Like all of these reports have been taken but nothing followed up. Like, why would you go to the police if you're not going to be believed anyway? Yeah,
it's either the clubs have something to do with it, like clubs are paying off the police.
No, because the clubs obviously want to look after their girls, but because the girls are going to the police and they're not believing them, and it's almost like there's like this stigma around hostessing.
Okay, yeah.
And because it's known to attract like foreign girls, and like they just don't really.
They don't care for them as much.
Yeah, enough to take it seriously.
Yeah, which is sad.
It's very sad.
Yeah, because then whoever's doing this, these Chinese billionaires. Sorry, were you in China or Japan?
Tokyo, Japan.
Japan, shit. Sorry. I've been saying China the whole time.
That's okay.
The people, like the guys that are going to these clubs, they know they can get away with roofing these girls up.
Yeah,
and getting away with it.
Exactly. So, meanwhile, like the police this small team of investigators are combing through what they can. Lucie's dad, Tim, has set up a whole telephone hotline for any tips on Lucie's disappearance, and he was doing his best to keep her story in the media. On the 1st of September, Lucie's 22nd birthday came and went with no sign of her. Her family released a balloon display into the sky and shared messages of love for Lucie in the media, hoping that if she heard them, like, she would know how much she was loved and how much they missed her, and they just really wanted her to know that they were thinking of her and trying to find her. After weeks of tirelessly highlighting Lucie's case in the media, a breakthrough emerges. The widespread attention prompts several women, fellow hostesses from Roppongi, to step forward to call Tim's hotline with similar stories. They recount instances of going on a dohan to a seaside restaurant with a well-dressed Japanese businessman. This man, who spoke fluent English, drove a flashy sports car and enjoyed the thrill of speeding on the road. All of them had different names for this man, so he gave them all a different alias.
But is it the same guy they're referring to? Or could it just be that all of these guys do this?
No, it's one man, which I will get to, but it is one man.
Okay.
So they were all reported to have been drugged, possibly sexually assaulted, and had all gone to the police about their experiences, but none of them had been taken seriously. So Tim got as much information from these women as he possibly could, and he even went as far as getting them to describe him so that they could come up with like a sketch of what he may look like and put it on the news to see where that leads them. And when they did, even more women came forward. So the police start following all of these leads with all of these different women, and one jumps out at them. One of the victims who bravely stepped forward to the police was a girl named Jessie, and she was from Australia. After meeting with her, she explained to the police that 3 years prior to Lucie's disappearance, or to that date, she had a similar experience. A dohan date where she blacked out, and hours later she woke up sore. Instinctively, like, she knew that something had been done to her, but they really have no idea. Like, they can't, they're out cold. So she told the police that she had written the man's like name and number down at the time in a journal, I think before she went on the dohan.
Yeah.
But that journal was now back in Australia.
Yeah.
So the police reach out to Jesse's dad about it, and he finds it and he sends it to Japan for them to examine it. So Jessie had like scribbled over this name and number, almost like she was so angry that she like scribbled it out. But luckily they were able to figure out like the name and the number. So they decipher it, they get the phone number, and the name on the notebook is Yuji Honda. So the police initiate a thorough examination of all the calls made from the phone number written in this notebook, which was still in use. Approximately 10 phone numbers had been called, and as they meticulously cross-referenced these against existing files that they had to see if anything matched, to their astonishment, they found a match. The number had matched with none other than Lucie Blackman. The police finally had like their first solid lead in this investigation.
Whoa. It's crazy.
So next they reach out to the phone company and they ask if they can track the phone number connected. And they do. Like they say yes. It pings near an antenna near like a Tokyo tower. And then 1 to 5 minutes later, a different antenna pings. And then 5 minutes later, another antenna pings. And they're like, how is this possible? Like there's no car that could like travel that fast. It's just pinging between these 4 towers. So they pin it out on a map, and when they do, they realize that it's like a square, like a perfect square. So they conclude that they think that this man is like between the 4 towers, like he's centered. So every time he makes a call, it's just jumping to like a tower, but it's all in the same distance. He's like centered to it. So that's why it's like jumping between these 4 towers.
Oh, right.
He's not actually moving.
Yeah.
Sorry if that was confusing.
Just a little bit.
A little bit. So police show up and present their badges to the manager. So they trace the call to an area called Akasaka, and it looks like the call came from a place called Moto Akasaka Towers, which is an expensive residential building in the area. The police show up and they present their badges to the manager, and he lets them in. The manager reveals that the 2 rooms on the 6th floor were being rented by a man who worked for a company called P. Orihara. He described him as an unusual guy, never really stopping to say hello, always looking down like he's hiding his face, and he drives a lot of luxury cars, and he even showed them the parking lot. There was a Porsche, a Mercedes-Benz, an Aston Martin, and a Rolls-Royce, all the cars mentioned in previous reports. Police are confident that they have the right person now, but they don't have enough for a warrant. It's all just kind of like a feeling at this point. So they go back to the hostess to get more information, but only a few of them are willing to go on record. One of those women was a lady named Monica, and she was from England. She mentioned that she met this man and went on a dohan with him, and he said his name was Koji, and it was the 10th of October 1997. On that day, she met with Koji in Roppongi. He drove her to a resort apartment near the beach with palm trees near the building. So this is like what she remembers. The police immediately thought of an area called Zushi Marina, known for its palm trees. So they kind of like they dive into this area. So they drive there with Monica. They hope that if she sees the area, maybe it'll like trigger a memory for her. And
Monica.
Oh, what did I say? Marina. Sorry, Monica, yes. They drive to Zushi Marina.
Yep.
And it's about half an hour away from Tokyo. And it's a luxury resort in an expensive area. And when they arrived, Monica pointed out, like, this is it. This was the area. But she wasn't 100% sure which building it was because they all kind of look similar.
Yep.
But she's like, oh, this feels like the right area. So police kind of go around the area, and they go into one particular restaurant, and they show a waitress Lucy's picture, and she was like, yeah, she's been here. She was here on the 1st of July. And they were like, was she with anybody? And she was like, yeah, with a man.
Oh, damn.
So they started asking around the apartments at Zushi Marina, and they talked to another manager, and they requested the list of all the residents in the building. They had to rule them out one by one, which was a big task, but if Lucy's life was at stake, like, they had to do it.
Yep.
So they're going through all of the residents in the building, or buildings, I should say, because there's multiple. And during their inquiries, police come across a name, Obara. And one of the officers just have this gut feeling about this particular person. So he tells a colleague that this person may be of interest and mentions his name as Obara. And the colleague has like a light bulb moment, realizing that the kanji characters, which is basically like we use letters, Japanese use kanji characters.
Yes.
They also use Japanese letters as well. So they've kind of got two different writing styles for their, for, you know what I'm trying to say.
I get you. Yeah.
Anyway, so the kanji characters for Obara, which is the name listed on the apartment block that they're currently looking into, and Orihara, which is the name listed on the apartments where the phone's pinged, are exactly the same. So they look the same when written on paper, but they read as two different words depending on how you're reading it.
Yes.
So when they put it together, they work out that this person's real name is Joji Obara. So they've got a name.
Mm-hmm.
So they look into Joji Obara's background and discover that he had previously been arrested for dressing up as a woman to sneak into the girls' toilets and film them while they were going to the bathroom.
One absolute seed.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
Because he had previously been arrested, it meant that there was a mugshot. So they get the mugshot sent via fax, and they finally have like a face to put to his name. So they compile a lineup of 100 photos, including Joji's mugshot, and they present this to the hostesses who had come forward, and to Monica and Jessie, the girl from Australia, and they all point to Joji Obara.
Why so many? Why 100 photos?
I don't know. It seems excessive.
Yeah, there's like 10, so they can narrow it down easier, because at least the police know that it's going to be him.
Yeah.
But they need to get the girls to say it.
Yeah.
Anyway, they all point to him?
They point to him, regardless. Yeah. So now, 103 days into Lucie's disappearance, the police are still lacking like direct evidence linking Joji to her, aside from the phone call, really. However, based on reports from other victims, they feel like they have at least enough to make an arrest.
Of course.
Yeah. On the 12th of October, 3 months after Lucie's disappearance, at 6 a.m, the police position themselves. Feeling a bit nervous but determined, they put 2 officers by the exit, 2 by the window, and 1 keeps a lookout. So there are 7 people in total.
Where are they positioning themselves?
They're at the Zushi Marina apartment, which is where he is.
Okay, yep.
Yeah. So they've got 7 officers waiting, and they're not really nervous about him as such, but they're nervous that he might do something like jump out a window or something.
Okay.
So they're just
they're not worried he's a threat to them.
To himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they kind of just wait. They know that he has a routine, and every morning at 7 a.m. he comes out to buy a newspaper. So they're just sitting and waiting for him to come out, because if they barge in, there's the risk that he's going to run out the window. So he does. He opens the door. He comes out, and they ask him, "Are you Joji Obara?" And he says, "Yes, I am." And they arrest him.
Okay.
It's as easy as that.
Done. Case solved.
The end. You wish.
No, I don't wish.
No. So, who is Joji Obara?
A seed.
Yes. But Joji Obara was born on August 10th, 1952 in Osaka, Japan. Originally, he started life as Kim Sung-jong. He later legally changed his name. He was raised by parents of Korean descent who immigrated to Japan after World War II. And Joji's early life was shaped by his father's transition from a scrap collector and taxi driver to a taxi fleet owner who ventured into a lucrative pachinko parlor business. Do you know what they are?
Parlor business?
Pachinko.
No.
Pachinkos. They are like vertical pinball machines. It's basically a Japanese casino.
Okay.
Yeah. So he managed to get into that.
Yep.
And these parlors, while popular, were known to attract attention, sometimes involving criminal activity. Sometimes they can be linked to the mafia and gangs, and rumors suggested that Joji's father might have associated with such circles.
Okay.
But suddenly, they came into a lot of money because of these pachinko parlors. So suddenly, wealthy, Joji's parents indulged in a luxurious lifestyle, living as millionaires. Joji was born into this affluent environment and grew up in mansions. He attended prestigious schools. He had private tutors and learned multiple languages. And by the age of 15, he was enrolled in the elite Yokohama prep school, prompting his father to buy him a mansion in Tokyo to avoid daily commuting because the distance was about 6 hours.
Okay, so it's not... I was just trying to think, well, how could someone this rich be so weird where he's come into the money? He hasn't earned it himself.
No, he was born into it.
Yeah, born into it.
Because this all happened, they became really rich before Joji was born, and then he was born into it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, he turns 15, and his dad ships him off to Tokyo to live in a mansion by himself with staff to go to school so that he didn't have to make the 6-hour commute every day.
Yeah.
So tragedy struck when Joji's father died suddenly at the age of 44. The cause of death remains unknown, but it does sound suspicious. With ties to the Japanese mafia hinted at, they think that maybe it could be related, but this is never proven.
Mm-hmm.
Following his father's death, Joji inherited most of his assets, becoming a multi-millionaire overnight at the age of 17. His wealth at this point, approximately $20 million US, which marked a significant and mysterious shift in his life.
Yeah.
Following this, Joji then went to the prestigious Keio University where he earned degrees in law and political science.
Okay.
But as many people say, money doesn't always buy you happiness. And in 1973, Joji, the then 21-year-old, faced some significant challenges with himself. Height became a focal point for him as he grappled with being 5 feet and 5 inches tall, which is a bit shorter than his preference. How would you feel if you were 5 feet tall?
Man, kill me now. Nah. Nothing against short kings, but but fuck that.
Okay. Attempting to address this concern, Joji experimented with growth hormones during his university years, hoping for a growth spurt that never materialized. Still insecure about his height, but with no luck from hormones, he opted for a more immediate solution and he started wearing platform shoes.
Oh, hence the dressing up as a girl later in life. In heels?
No, that had absolutely nothing to do with it. He's a pervert.
Yeah, okay. He's a pervert, but...
No, okay. Just stop. You sound dumb. Beyond the height issue, Joji dealt with excessive sweating, leading him to frequently have to wipe his face with a handkerchief, and frustrated with these physical insecurities, he underwent plastic surgery to widen his eyes, believing it would enhance his attractiveness. This is also when he changed his name from his Korean one to Joji Obara, a more Japanese-sounding identity. Despite these transformative efforts, Joji continued to grapple with the deep-rooted self-consciousness. The journey to self-acceptance remained an ongoing struggle for Joji Obara. So he basically hated himself, like the way he looked. He obviously had an issue with his Korean background because he really wanted to be perceived as Japanese and look Japanese. He really didn't like the way he looked. Like, he actually refused to have his picture taken. And if you look online, there's literally only 3 photos of him that you can find. Like, he never did. And then even when he did kind of go out or get a photo taken, he would have sunglasses on always. He was always covering his face. Post-graduation, Joji found himself at a crossroads, unsure of his life's direction. Opting for a few years of exploration, he traveled extensively, spending time in Stockholm, Sweden, and later venturing to the United States. Returning to Japan in his late 20s, Joji still grappled with the uncertainty of his future. However, he made a bold choice: to do nothing. Content with his multi-millionaire status, Joji aspired to embrace the lifestyle of a playboy, investing heavily in property and riding the wave of Japan's thriving economy in the late 70s. Transitioning into the booming 80s, he lived off his shrewd investments. Japan was on the cusp of becoming the world's largest economy, and Joji Obara, like many during this period, reaped the financial rewards of these prosperous times. So basically, he went traveling, he came home, Japan is booming, so his investments are doubling. He's got all this money, and he really has no reason to have any aspirations in life. He's like, you know what, I'm just gonna party. Like, that sounds good to me. And that's what he did.
Don't blame him for that.
So Joji Obara entered an era of extravagant spending during this period. Frequenting nightclubs nightly and splurging on alcohol, he indulged in the purchase of multiple high-end luxury cars and used his wealth to attract women by flaunting his cash, generously buying drinks for them, and with substantial investments in property, his peak wealth reached a staggering $45 million. Despite this opulence, Joji remained profoundly lonely, lacking genuine friendships and rarely engaging with his family. His days were often spent alone at home, with nights filled by spending money to distract him from his loneliness. So really no one cared about him unless he was paying them to at night time.
That is sad. Really sad.
Well,
But who cares?
But who cares? So for years, Joji lived in isolation, finding solace in the walls of his mansion. However, the 1990s brought about a significant change as Japan's economic bubble burst. Asset prices plummeted, pushing the country into a recession, and Joji suffered substantial financial losses, accumulating debts that reached a point where his mother had to intervene, helping him settle a staggering $33 million debt. So he basically lost so much money, and he ended up being in debt. And his mum had to pay off his debts of $33 million.
Wow, thanks, Mum.
How do you go from having $45 million to being in debt $33 million?
But that 45, that was just his net worth. Like, that could have been the value of, like, properties and stuff that he had.
Over
Who
time.
knows exactly how much he had. But,
yeah,
that sucks. Well, good on your mum for just forking out 33 mil.
But can you imagine how much money they have if she can just be like, here you go, son. You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy. Remarkably, though, despite financial setbacks, Joji's business remained afloat, sparking speculation about its possible connection to the Yakuza syndicate, Sumiyoshi Kai, which is what it's called. Basically, it's the mafia.
Yeah.
And Joji's isolated lifestyle made him kind of an ideal frontman for any potential money laundering scheme, because he really had minimal risk of leaking anything or anyone kind of dobbing on him, because no one knew who he was. Like, he was a loner. While Joji managed to sustain some income, it was insufficient to uphold the lavish lifestyle he had built. His once majestic mansion fell into despair due to financial constraints, and his luxury cars, unable to be maintained, turned into mere trophies in his parking garage. So they kind of just sat going to waste. Does that hurt you?
That the cars are going to waste?
A little Rolls Royce just sitting there, undriven, sad.
Yeah. It should be in my driveway.
However, delving beyond the financial fluctuations, Joji Obara harbored a sinister aspect, a darkness directed towards women. Joji was a shameless womanizer, harboring a profound disdain for women. In his twisted perspective, he believed women were only valuable for sex, a sentiment meticulously reported in a journal he maintained since his early 20s. Over time, the contents of this journal evolved into even darker territories. Joji's fantasies escalated to include disturbing desires of engaging in sexual acts with women who were asleep or unconscious. This is actually a real fetish. It's called somniphilia. And it's basically where, someone's turned on by someone being unconscious.
So they're but they prefer to do it with them while they're
knocked out.
Asleep.
Cold.
What about dead? Is it dead?
No.
Just
That's
knocked out.
necrophilia. Yes, just knocked out, unconscious.
That's fucked. It's all fucked up.
I know, it's crazy. And I was trying to look this up, just find out more about it, because someone in one of the reports, it said there's clubs dedicated to this, like actual clubs where you can go and pay to have sex with someone asleep. I couldn't find anything to legitimately say that was true. But I was like, if someone looks at my Google search history right now, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
I'm in big trouble.
What are you doing, honey?
I know, but I couldn't find anything. So I don't know if that's exactly true, if there is nightclubs dedicated to that. But anyway, that was a thing, and he was into it. And soon enough, these disturbing fantasies morphed into horrifying realities as Joji resolved to turn them into real-life experiences. So he basically, it's I'm sick of fantasizing. I want to make this a reality. So he ventures out, revisiting one of the clubs from his affluent days, and he spots a girl, and he charms her, and they kind of spend the evening together. And as the night concluded, Joji invites the woman to his mansion, and she's having a nice time. She's actually had a good night, which is almost it makes me so mad, because if he didn't have these sick fetishes, he could have met a nice girl. I don't know.
What, and maybe had a chance?
And had a nice time. He didn't have to do this to have sex with women, but he liked the idea of them being unconscious. It wasn't about him just getting laid. He wanted this fantasy. So back at his place, Joji prepared a drink for her, and once consumed, she quickly fell unconscious. Joji had drugged her drink, and seizing the opportunity, Joji indulged in his sick desires, subjecting her to sexual assault. The next morning, the woman awoke, disorientated and confused and unaware of what really happened. Joji tells her, I think you just drank too much and you passed out. And despite her having this weird gut feeling in her stomach, something had happened to her.
Yeah.
Because she had no recollection of the previous night, she chose not to report it. And Joji escaped consequences, bolstering his dark confidence and propelling him to basically repeat these heinous acts again and again. Joji consistently followed this routine, frequenting the club area, enticing women to come home with him, flashing off his money and his wealth, luring her home, basically drugging her, assaulting her while she remained unconscious. And then the next morning, he would dismiss them as if nothing had happened. And many of the women woke up oblivious. Some of them really had no idea that this had happened to them. They genuinely thought that they'd just fallen asleep. While others, they had a feeling. And even when they went to the police, no one believed them. So Joji continued to evade justice, perpetuating this horrific pattern for over a decade on the regular. So we'll go back to the arrest, which, thank God, he's in custody.
Yep.
Because, even though he's in custody, it's just kind of on suspicion. The police have no idea how much of a monster Joji really is. They have no idea his history. And once in custody, police raid Joji Ibarra's residences, his apartments, his mansions, and they find his journal that he's been writing in since the early 20s. They found entries about how much he hated women, with notes like, women are only good for sex. I will lie on them. I will seek revenge. Revenge on the world. Foreign hostesses are all ugly, not in the sense of appearance, but in their minds. Within the journal, alongside the disturbing narratives, were the names of 209 women.
Fuck.
Each name was accompanied by detailed notes outlining the drugs administered, the reactions upon waking, and the use of chloroform, whether or not he used it or not, and what he did to them. Yeah.
What an absolute...
Yeah.
Oh.
I know. So in the ceiling of his bedrooms, they also found hooks in the ceiling, U-shaped hooks, as if you would hook something onto it. And they also found a collection of over 400 videotapes. Each tape featured a different woman who had been drugged and sexually assaulted by Joji. Over 400 tapes, and every single one was different. So he'd done this to over 400 women. And after discovering the tapes, the police, they have to go through and they have to watch each one and witness the assault of so many women, which would be such a hard job. Many of the officers experienced emotional breakdowns and they couldn't keep doing it. But for those who pressed on, sifting through all of the 400 tapes revealed no sign of Lucie Blackman. So out of all of the tapes, there was none of Lucie. However, a diary entry mentioning a woman named Carita Ridgway proved to be a crucial breakthrough. Beside Carita's name was a note that simply read, too much chloroform. So the police set out to locate Carita, and they learned that she had passed away 8 years earlier, reportedly from viral hepatitis. In an unexpected twist, the hospital still held a liver sample from Carita. For some reason, they hadn't thrown it out and they still had it. And after they tested it, it came back positive for chloroform. And they realized that she had chloroform poisoning, which led to organ failure. And that's why she died.
Can they get him on murder now?
Yes, I'll get to that.
Okay.
So Carita, like Lucie Blackman, had ventured to Japan as a foreign visitor seeking cultural experiences and initially arriving with her sister Samantha to work as English teachers. But they opted for a hostess job after facing challenges finding work. And Carita really liked this job. She was great at charming clients with entertaining, and she had a friendly demeanor. Her fate took a dark turn, though, when she agreed to go on a dohan with Joji Ibarra. The evening started with dinner and drinks, and then Joji offered to drive Carita home, but she never made it home. Instead, she ended up back at the home of Joji, where she was drugged and assaulted. And one of Joji's methods of keeping the girls he assaulted asleep was by placing a chloroform-soaked cloth over their face to keep them asleep. So you just put it on their face and left it there, basically. But unlike the previous victims, Kurita began to wake up during the assault, and despite his efforts, Kurita continued to awaken even after Joji repeatedly gave her more chloroform. After a while, she started experiencing tremors and vomiting, and Joji could tell that something had obviously gone wrong here, so he takes her to the hospital, and he tells them that they're on a date and they were having sushi and she must have eaten something bad, like she's just become really sick. And he gives them a fake name, and then he just like leaves and leaves her there. Kurita's sister Samantha receives notice the following Monday that Kurita was in hospital and extremely unwell, prompting the rest of her family to fly from Australia.
She was Australian as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't say that?
No, you said Jessie was from Australia.
Oh, sorry. Kurita was also from Australia. So her family fly in, but unfortunately, by the next Sunday, Kurita was declared brain dead and taken off life support. And up until this point, her death had been deemed accidental, but with the video evidence and the evidence written by Joji himself in his diary, it was clear that Kurita's death wasn't an accident, and she had died at the hands of Joji Obaro. So Joji could absolutely be charged with the death of Kurita Ridgway, but other than the phone call, there really was nothing linking him to Lucie Blackman, at least no hard evidence, and suddenly shedding any light on where she might be just didn't seem like it was going to happen. Like they couldn't work out if she was still alive.
Mm-hmm.
So the police are doing everything they can. They're going over every single inch of his apartment, his mansion, his belongings, and eventually they come across something that might finally link Joji to Lucie. They discover some strands of hair, blonde strands of hair, and when it was tested, it was a match to Lucie Blackman. So this at least puts Lucie in Joji Obaro's apartment, and now we have a definitive link, but they still don't have any idea where she is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I mentioned this, but it's on my mind. But obviously after watching the tapes, the hooks in the ceiling, he would use that to hold the women's legs up while he assaulted them. Yeah, I just remembered that. I didn't put that in there. So now Lucie had been missing for 134 days since the 1st of July, the year 2000. And with the evidence stacked against him, Joji Obaro finally admits to at least meeting Lucie in the Casablanca club about a week before her disappearance. But he denies having any involvement with her disappearing.
Mm-hmm.
The hope that Lucie would be found alive was fleeting, and it felt pretty grim. The police's number one focus now was finding Lucie. There was a chance she was still alive. Obaro had a habit of collecting things, including receipts, so the police start to analyze and create a timeline for Joji Obaro, and they reconstruct his movements on the day that Lucie went missing. So on July 1, around 3 p.m., Joji meets Lucie at Sushi Marina. They then stop at a restaurant near the yacht harbour in Hayama. This was confirmed by a police officer at the time. Around 5 p.m, they went to Joji's apartment at Sushi Marina, and this is where Lucie's whereabouts become unknown.
Mm-hmm.
Between the night of July 2nd and the early morning of July 3rd, Joji drives back to Tokyo. On July 4th, Joji goes shopping, and among the receipts from that day, they find a purchase for a chainsaw, cement, and a portable tent. On July 5th, Joji visited an apartment at the Blue Sea I can't say that word. One of many properties he owned, basically, at the apartments. The next day, a resident in the building complained to the manager about noise coming from Joji's apartment. So whatever he's doing in there, he's annoying the neighbours.
Yeah.
So police speculate that it was highly likely that Lucie probably did lose her life. She's probably dead, and she was probably dead within a few days of her going missing. And then Joji Obaro most likely moved her body to the Sushi Marina apartments, where he most likely dismembered her there. After looking at the evidence, this was the only thing that kind of made sense to them.
Mm-hmm.
But Lucie's case lacked real evidence again. It was all just circumstantial. They needed hard evidence or a body to connect Joji Obaro to Lucie, and also closure for the families. I can't imagine what Lucie's parents are going through at the moment, even if they were you know what, we think she's dead. That would, as a parent, that would not be enough for me. I'd need to know where she was. So they searched the beaches near the apartments for days, looking for any sign of Lucie, and they're just not having much luck, and they're getting to the point now where the government is also like almost going to can the investigation and be like you've spent too much money, you've done enough. But they don't want to give up, obviously. So they keep searching and they start to look in spots that were a little bit more hidden, like not so in plain sight near the apartments. And the apartments they're at the beach. They're based on like a cliff kind of thing. So you can walk down to the cliffs by like concrete stairs, but it's a bit of a distance. So there's a lot of like hidden caves and stuff in there. So they pay more attention to this particular area. And after 223 days missing, on the 9th of February at 8:15 in the morning, they noticed 2 to 3 caves down the beach that they had yet to search, and they just had a hunch. So they peered inside, and the area was littered with things that had washed ashore. And after clearing everything inside of the cave out, they saw an like a bathtub that was upside down. I actually don't know exactly whether they've seen this before or after, but they clean the cave out. They see the bathtub, and they decide to flip it over, and under the bathtub in the sand there was heaps of bugs, like worms and things like that in the sand, which is odd for the beach. And so they start digging a little deeper, and they find what looks like a burlap sack or some kind of bag, and they cut it open, and it reveals a foot. They had found a dismembered body, and they were certain it was Lucie. After testing, Lucie's father was called and informed that after 223 days of searching, Lucie had been found, but unfortunately not alive. And this was kind of the first time that Lucie's father had actually considered that she might be dead. Like, I think in those like circumstances, you would just hold on to hope, because that's all you would have.
Yeah.
And he really was just like, my daughter is alive. My daughter's alive. So that definitely would have been like a punch in the gut. Following the discovery, Joji Ibarra was finally charged with the rape and murder of Lucie Blackman. He was also charged with the manslaughter of Karita Ridgway and faced 8 counts of rape after 8 women came forward to press charges. Despite the evidence, witnesses, and the recovery of Lucie's body, Joji did not confess. This meant that they needed to proceed with a trial, which was actually an uncommon process in Japan, because for the majority, they would get confessions of people and get guilty pleas without having to go to trial. So trials in Japan actually only occur once a month. So because of this, the trial dragged out for 6 years.
The fuck? And what, he was free for 6 years?
No.
Okay.
He was on bail. He was in remand.
Yeah.
So after 6 years, in April 2007, 55-year-old Joji Ibarra was found guilty in Tokyo High Court on almost all charges: the murder of Karita Ridgway and 8 cases of rape. However, he was acquitted of Lucie Blackman's murder due to the lack of physical evidence. So Karita's family felt relief that Ibarra was finally held accountable for their daughter and sister's death. However, their anger and disappointment regarding the 1992 investigation lingered. If the police had acted on their pleas, Joji Ibarra might have been off the streets long before he had a chance to harm anyone else. So they're mad that like when she, died at the hospital, they didn't believe that she was like died of food poisoning basically. But the police was just like, what else could it be, and dismissed them. And because of this, Joji Ibarra continued, and now Lucie's died and more women have been assaulted. Lucie Blackman's family and the prosecution refused to accept the acquittal of her murder and appealed the verdict. In December 2008, 8 years after Lucie's murder, Joji Ibarra was found guilty of abducting, dismembering, and concealing Lucie Blackman's body, but he was not convicted of her murder. And you might be asking yourself why? Why was he not convicted of her murder when the evidence clearly points to him? I mean, how can you be convicted of abducting her and cutting her body up and hiding her but not actually killing her? This could have something to do with the $450,000 condolence payout that Lucie's dad, Tim, accepted from one of Joji Ibarra's so-called friends. This is something that happens in the Japanese justice system from time to time, and people will often do it for a reduced sentence. So a victim, or not a victim, a perpetrator will offer the victim money in exchange for a reduced sentence. So when Lucie's mum.
What we call here a bribe.
Well, it's not. They're not paying off the judge or the lawyers. It's the victim itself. I mean, I guess you could kind of call it a bribe.
So then the victim's families will be like, okay, you give us 500,000 rather than doing 25, you do 20.
Something like that, yeah. So it's kind of, but this is only really like a practice in Japan. I don't know if it's still happening to this current day, but it was at the time. And obviously, like, Lucie's mum, Jane, like, when she got this offer, she was like, hell fucking no.
Yeah.
Like, I want you to pay for what you did for my daughter. And her sisters said the same, and her brothers. But Lucie's dad, Tim, well, he felt differently about it, and he accepted the money. And in exchange for accepting this money, Tim had to sign a statement basically denouncing the prosecution's case against Joji, stating that it wasn't strong enough to convict Joji of her murder.
Damn.
Is that not fucking unhinged? After all the work he did, he decided that a payout would be better than justice for his own daughter.
How long was the dad maybe thinking he's still going to go away for life anyway?
Maybe, but would you not want justice? Like, do you really feel like justice is served if he isn't convicted for her murder?
Yeah.
He had accepted it and was like, I'm going to accept
Start
this.
a foundation or something.
I'm going to start a foundation.
Yeah.
I'm going to, create a hospital ward or something in Lucie Blackman's name.
Yeah.
But he bought a fucking yacht.
Okay. This story just gets crazier.
I know. It's just, I mean, I guess it's each to their own. I just find it disappointing. And so did, obviously, Lucie's family.
Of course,
They completely were like, fuck you. Mm-hmm. The prosecution refused to accept the acquittal of Lucie's murder. Like, they basically were like, you're not going to get away with this. And in December 2008, 8 years after Lucie's murder, Joji Ibarra was found guilty of abducting, dismembering and concealing Lucie Blackman's body. He still didn't get the murder. He didn't get convicted of murder. Mm-hmm. And they believe it's because Tim accepted this money. But he does get an irreversible life sentence. So he's never getting out of jail. Yep. And to this day, he still denies any involvement in Lucie Blackman's death. And that is the case of Lucie Blackman.
Whoa.
The end.
It's crazy that, like, the story is not crazy, but, like, it's funny how the story's on her, but it could have been on almost any of those other victims.
Like Corita Ridgway could have her own story as well. Like, this is her story too, really. Yeah. But it's just...
Yeah, but it's just, it's absolutely
the
crazy.
The scary part, though, is like there's 209 women's names written in this diary. And there's 400 tapes, but he didn't start taping until a few years in to this fantasy that he was living out. Like, he started drugging women and taking them home and raping them. And then the novelty of that kind of wore off. So he amped it up by setting up video. So there is probably hundreds more women that have been a victim of his. And for him to, Corita, he dropped her off at the hospital, but Lucie, like, he accidentally murdered Lucie. There's actually no one really knows cause of death for her. No one knows exactly how she died, but he went as far as to go and buy a tent and put her body in the tent and cut her up in the tent so that none of her blood would be, like, in the bathroom. And, like, the way that he dismembered her and hid her, like, that doesn't feel like a first time offense. So like, is there more out there? Like, has he murdered more women? He's not confessing to Lucie, so he's never going to confess to more. But it's just, I just can't believe that a person like that exists.
Yeah, fuck that. Cut his dick off, cut his hands off. But also the other very, very sad part and important part is how the police were not taking anybody serious where he could have been stopped earlier.
Absolutely. So, that's kind of disgusting. And it's something that you still see today, like girls are too scared to go or report things like this because they don't feel like they'll be believed. And I just find that really sad. As a woman, I think it's really sad. So that was today's case. There actually is a documentary on this on Netflix if you guys want to watch it. I feel like my story that I just shared was a bit more insightful than the documentary. It was very much just placed on the police investigation. There's not a lot about Joji Ibarra as a person, or it doesn't include the little bribe, I guess, that Tim accepted at the end, and it makes you kind of wonder what the narrative was about that documentary. But it is on there if you want to go and watch it. But otherwise, that is today's case. And if you have a minute, I hate to do this, but I feel like we need to start doing it because I never ask if you could leave a review on our podcast. Because we need to get that review bumped up. We've got a few negative ones from when we first started, before we even dropped an episode. Yeah, just from like the haters who just want us to fail from the start.
They hate us because they ain't us.
Look, I know that our podcast started off pretty rough, but I feel like we're getting better. So I feel like we deserve a good 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. If you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe. It's very helpful. And make sure you go and engage with us on Instagram, on our social media, and let us know what you thought of this episode. I'd love to know if you would have accepted that money if it was offered to you.
Absolutely not.
And actually, Karita Ridgway's family accepted money too after they were like, no, we're not accepting it until he's convicted of murder.
Mm-hmm.
And he was convicted, so they accepted it. And I don't know what they did with that money, but I thought I'd add that in there.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, hope to hear from you on socials. Slide into our DMs, and we will catch you guys next week.
Tell me then.
Bye, darlings.